If you have any amount invested in cryptocurrencies, whether it's 50 reis or 5,000, this video might be the most important one of your financial life. And if you're a parent, drowning in bills, burdened by debt, facing the daily agony of choosing between paying a bill or putting food on the table, stop everything you're doing and pay close attention. Because what I'm about to show you is something being ignored by the media, hidden from the masses, but it could completely change your reality in the coming months. This is not an exaggeration, nor an empty promise. It's a warning. The signs are there, clear, visible, but only those who are truly paying attention will be able to protect themselves, and maybe even turn the tide. You'll understand why this is the most strategic moment since the creation of Bitcoin. And more than that, you'll discover how regular people, with little money and a lot of debt, can use this moment as a real chance to rise from rock bottom. Imagine waking up and finding out your bank account has been frozen. Sounds exaggerated? Then think back to 2008. Giant banks collapsed overnight. Millions lost everything. Now, in 2025, the signs are returning. Record national debt, rising interest rates, bursting housing bubbles, and massive layoffs from major institutions. The system is on the brink of a new collapse, but they're not talking about it on the news.
Why?
Because while you're struggling to pay your credit card and keep the lights on, the elites are moving their assets into something safer, crypto. Unlike the dollar, which loses value with every round of printing by the Fed, Bitcoin is limited, transparent, and immune to political manipulation. You might be a parent, tight on money, without time or headspace for any of this. But ignoring this shift could cost you more than you can imagine. The 2008 crash caught the unprepared by surprise. And now, history may be about to repeat itself, with one detail: those holding crypto may be more protected than ever. Every year it's the same. Tax return season arrives, and most families rush to pay off debts, buy a new gadget, or maybe take a short trip. But what if I told you that money could change your financial life forever? In the United States, the average tax return exceeds $2,000. That's enough to start a basic cryptocurrency portfolio with great growth potential. But the government doesn't educate you about this. On the contrary, it encourages you to spend it all, boosting consumption, not investment. Because when you invest, you free yourself. You break out of the cycle of dependency, credit cards, student loans, and medical debt. And the system needs you to stay in debt to keep functioning. So before deciding what to do with your next refund, think differently. Invest in a future where you no longer need that refund to breathe. One small decision can break a cycle passed down through generations. Americans live in debt. Credit cards, once seen as a solution, have become traps. Today, the average household owes over $6,000, with interest rates reaching 24% a year. It's a dirty game. They offer high limits, cashback, points, but hide the true cost behind impossible compound interest. And the cruelest part: the more you pay, the less you have left to live on. Bitcoin was created to break this cycle. It doesn't rely on banks, credit cards, or approval. It's yours. It's direct. And it's fair. For those tired of watching their paycheck vanish into endless bills, this is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not about getting rich quick. It's about taking back control. Using technology to escape the maze Wall Street built to keep you trapped. And every fraction of crypto you buy, even the smallest, is a step toward freedom. Historically, racial minorities and immigrants in the U.S. have always been excluded from the traditional financial system. Denied by banks, preyed upon by predatory lending, and left without access to quality financial education. But something is changing. Bitcoin has become a silent weapon of empowerment. More and more Latinos, African Americans, single mothers, and immigrant workers are learning how to use crypto to store value outside the system that oppressed them. And it's not theory, it's practice. It's downloading a wallet on your phone, buying $5 worth of Satoshis, and getting started. It doesn't require fluent English, a credit score, or a Wells Fargo account. It requires a decision. Because when the front door is locked, sometimes you have to build a new exit. And Bitcoin can be that exit, not just to escape poverty, but to create a future where the system no longer decides your fate. In the U.S., student debt is a ticking time bomb. More than $1.7 trillion haunts the lives of millions of parents, mothers, and children. Entire families commit their futures to pay for degrees that don't always deliver the promised return. And what does the government do? They pause it, resume it, raise the interest rates, but never fix it. Now stop and think. What if instead of funding a broken system, you started building a freedom fund based on assets that grow outside the traditional logic? Crypto assets like Ethereum, for instance, have allowed many young people and parents to accumulate value over time, with a very low entry cost. Instead of paying 10% interest to a student loan bank, why not save 10% of your income in something that can multiply? It's not magic, it's math. And it's you versus the clock. Waiting for debt forgiveness may never happen. But taking control of your own economy, that you can start doing today. The Federal Reserve is already testing the digital version of the dollar, the CBDC, or central bank digital currency. It sounds modern, it sounds efficient, but it hides a danger. Unlike physical money or even decentralized cryptos, the government's digital currency can be tracked, programmed, and even frozen with a single click. Can you imagine your money being blocked for making a political donation, saying something forbidden online, or not following certain rules? Sounds like fiction, but it's already happening in China. And in the US, we're heading in that direction. That's why Bitcoin is more than an investment. It's a shield. It's a way to protect your financial freedom. Because when everything is digital and controlled, those holding true crypto will still be able to breathe outside the system. And it might be the only way out when everything is being monitored in real time. In the United States, a simple hospital visit can result in bills worth thousands of dollars. A broken arm, a childbirth, an emergency scan. All of it can turn into unpayable debt. And unlike other countries, here health is a luxury-priced service. The result? Millions of parents deep in debt, not because of poor choices, but because they tried to take care of their family. Now imagine if part of that money had been protected, appreciated, multiplied. Cryptocurrencies offer a new way to store value, accessible, without middlemen, and with growth potential. Blockchain is not just a technology, it's a promise of freedom. And in a world where even health becomes debt, having control over your own money could be the difference between despair and dignity. The American dream has always been owning a home, a car in the garage, and job stability. But today, for millions of families, that dream has turned into a nightmare. Rent prices are skyrocketing, properties are out of reach, jobs are unstable, and the cost of living is crushing any plan for the future. But a new dream is emerging, the dream of financial independence through the internet, technology, and digital assets. It's now possible to work from home, invest smartly, and escape the old system. And at the center of it all are cryptocurrencies. You don't need to be a programmer or a professional trader. You just need to start. Understand that the new economy isn't going to wait for anyone. And those who learn now will reap the rewards while others are still trying to figure out what happened. How many times have you been in a tight spot for not having an emergency fund? A blown tire, a broken appliance, an unexpected bill, and just like that, your monthly budget is thrown off. But what if you created a fund, just for yourself, stored in a stablecoin like USDC or DAI, without exchange rate risk, without bank fees, and earning better returns than traditional savings accounts? Today, that's possible. With a digital wallet, you can set up your own family fund, protected, accessible in seconds, and out of reach from greedy banks. It's a practical way to use crypto in real life. It's not about getting rich. It's about surviving better. And every family that does this will be safer when the next unexpected expense comes, because the unexpected always comes. The difference is whether you'll be prepared or vulnerable. If you grew up hearing that money was only for the rich, that investing was risky, or that the important thing was getting a good job, know this, you're not alone. Millions of families inherited beliefs that hold them back. But the good news is, you can be the one to break that chain. Start by learning. Teach your kids about Bitcoin, about scarcity, about financial freedom. It doesn't have to be complex. It can be in the form of a story, of an example. Show them there's another way. A way where money doesn't just come from effort, but from intelligence. Where saving is more important than spending. Where freedom is worth more than status. Because maybe you didn't have this knowledge growing up. But that doesn't mean the cycle has to repeat. You can be the parent who plants something new. And that, more than any dollar amount, is the biggest investment of your life. You don't need to believe in magic or miracle formulas. You just need to understand what's really happening. Let's get straight to the point. In recent months, while many people were panic selling their crypto, big banks and investment funds started buying. Quietly, slowly, they're accumulating digital assets like never before. And the question is, why? The traditional financial system is weakening. Inflation is out of control, banks are being bailed out by governments, and the population is drowning in debt. Trust is collapsing. And in this scenario, crypto assets are shining again, not as a gamble, but as protection. The problem is that while the rich are getting ready, the poor are being distracted. Distracted by ads, debt, abusive interest rates, and the emotional weight of not being able to keep up. And if there's one thing that hurts, it's looking into your kids' eyes and feeling like you're not being the parent you want to be. Not for lack of love, but for lack of resources. I know. And that's why this video isn't about getting rich quick. It's about flipping the switch. Let's talk about debt. Because that's what eats away at the daily lives of millions of families in the United States. Maxed out credit cards, loan on top of loan, unpayable interest rates. Debt becomes an invisible prison. You wake up in debt, work in debt, go to sleep in debt, and wake up again with the same weight. And over time, that debt becomes something deeper. It turns into guilt, shame, and fear of the future. But let me tell you something. Your debt doesn't define your worth. It reflects decisions, often made in desperation, in a system that was never built to benefit you. And earning more money doesn't solve it. Learning to play the game does. Understanding what your priorities are. Cutting out what's holding you back. And taking advantage of opportunities like this one that are emerging now, with crypto. Because yes, they can be a path. An escape. A seed. Even if it's small. And I know what you might be thinking, but I can barely pay the bills. How am I supposed to invest in cryptocurrencies? And the answer is, you don't need much. You need direction. Some people turn 50 reis a month into something big, because they plant with intention and harvest with patience. The problem is most people want instant returns. They want to gamble, not build. But the secret is in the long term. Bitcoin, for example, went from $1,000 to over $300,000 in just a few years. Those who had vision back then changed their lives. And those who were afraid missed the chance. And here's the interesting part. Every time Bitcoin prepares for a new surge, and it happens in cycles, the media starts spreading fear. They say it's a bubble, that it's dangerous, that it's worthless. And the poor sell. Meanwhile, the rich buy. It's always been like that. And once again, it's happening now. There's an event called the halving, which happens every 4 years in Bitcoin. In short, it cuts in half the number of new coins being created. That reduces supply, and history shows that shortly after, prices tend to rise sharply. And guess when the next halving happens? Very soon. The experts are already positioning themselves. So are the big investors. And you? Are you going to wait for the news to hit TV? Because when it does, it'll already be too late. It'll already be expensive. The entry point will have passed. And no, this isn't about timing the market perfectly. It's about being in before the crowd. It's about understanding the moment and doing what you can with what you have. And if you're in debt, this might be even more important. Because it's not about risking everything. It's about creating an alternative. An escape route. A valve of hope. Have you ever thought that maybe, instead of financing a new phone, you could take that money and plant a seed for your kid's future? Have you thought that instead of paying interest to the bank, you could start making your money work for you? It's counterintuitive, I know. But it's real. The system wants you on autopilot. Working to pay bills. Paying bills to keep working. But there is another way. And no, it's not easy. But it is possible. There's a Chinese proverb that says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. That applies to crypto. It applies to your financial life. It applies to your story. It doesn't matter what you've been through so far. What matters is what you're going to do now, with what you know. The choice is yours. And if this video woke something up in you, if it sparked even a little bit of hope, then the mission has already begun. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment below saying, I choose to plant today. And come back to this channel every week, because together, step by step, we're going to build a new reality. A reality where parents don't need to take out loans just to buy Christmas gifts. Where fear is replaced by strategy. And where you no longer have to feel guilty for not having made it, because now you finally understand that it was always possible. They just never told you. Until now.